Socialites, and welcome to the sewing tutorial of this dress. In the previous tutorial, it was all about the pattern drafting and the cutting. So in today's one, I'm going to be taking you through every single sewing process involved in the making of this dress. I know you're interested in this particular one. Why not sit your back, relax, and enjoy the entire sewing process of this beautiful dress. So catch you at the end.
So for this one, I have these two crepe fabric, the plain and then the patterned one. And to further proceed with the cutting, I placed my fabric on fold like so and placed the pattern paper on it, and I added 1.5 inches to the side, half inch at the armhole area and then half inch at the under bust area, after which I proceeded with the cutting along all those seam allowances are already added. And after cutting, I notched this part at the under bust, that's this bustier area, and have that notched out. This is going to help while I stitch. So I took out the pattern paper and I opened up, and this is what it looks like. So I'm going to be cutting the interfacing exactly as this. Okay, so the next one I also placed on fold. This is the back pattern. I added 1 inch at the lower part, I added 1.5 inches at the side, half inch at the armhole area, and then at the neck, shoulder and the zipper allowance area I added nothing. Okay, and after cutting, this is what I have. I took out the pattern paper, opened up, and this is what we have. Okay, so for the dart, I'm going to be folding it two like this and then have the dart stitched on both sides of the fabric. And next I place another fabric on fold, added half an inch at the lower part, 1.5 inches at the side, and also half inch at the upper area. Remember that for this front, upper and middle part, I added half an inch at the down part. Okay, so I opened up, and this is what we have. And proceeding to the lower part of the dress, that's the gathered area, I have my fabric placed on fold, and this is the center fold area. So I measured the whole width placed on fold, after which I took out the zipper allowance. So after taking out the zipper allowance, the next thing to do is to divide the fabric into 4 equal places. Okay, so when I did the mathematics of division, I got 15 inches for each of the parts. So I have 15 inches into 4 places. So I have this first part as the center fold area, this other two as the side, and then this as the back. And then I began with the placement of these slash patterns accordingly. So this for the center front, and then I placed like so. Can you see? So this is the first one. So to get the length of the pattern paper, I got the longest length, which is 12 inches, and then I'm going to be marking that all through the length of the part, that is all through where the length of the pattern paper is going to stop, so that they are uniform. Okay, because of the scalloping at the upper area. So I got the one for the side of the dress, and for the side of the dress I'm going to be using the 15 inches division by 2. Okay, that's 30 for the side, and I also marked the 12 inches that I have for the longest length of the pattern paper, and I also arranged. Okay, so this is where the other one terminated, and then I arranged accordingly, and then I proceeded to the last one, which is the zipper area. I also marked the 12 inches for the longest length of the pattern paper, and I proceeded to placing them accordingly on the fabric. And this is how all the placement of the slashed pattern paper went. So after that, I'm going to be marking accordingly. You can see how the scallopy shaping at the upper part is going to take. So I have that marked out all the way from the beginning to the end. Okay, so after having that marked out, the next thing I'm going to be cutting along all these parts that I have marked out at the upper area, so that it gives me the perfect scallopy shape at the upper part of the lower gathered area of the dress. So after cutting, I took out all the pattern papers, and then I opened up the fabric, and this is what the whole fabric when opened up looks like. And you see the scallopy shape at the upper. So I'm going to be gathering according to each shape. Okay, so I gather each shape to match with what the upper part of the body is. So this is the back part of the dress, and at this point obviously you can see that I have the dart stitched on the back part of the dress, both the main bodice and then the interfacing. So I'm going to be stitching on the neck and then close up this side of the back. And for the middle part of the front part of the dress, I'm just going to be closing the upper and the lower part. I'm not going to be turning that part, I'm only going to be turning the side. Okay, so for this particular middle part, I'm only going to be turning the sides with the interfacing. So this is the upper part of the dress. So I get the interfacing, I'm going to be stitching around the neck, and then at this down under bust area I also gather, which I'm going to be showing you how that is going to be done shortly. So for the gathering at the under bust area, I'm going to be marking at this point that I notched. This is only a guide. The gathering is not limited to just this point that I already marked. Okay, it's just going to be a guide. So by the time I use my gathered stitch to stitch, I'm going to be pulling so that I would gather up to the point that I want. So I marked on the other side as well. I have the gathered stitched done on it, and then I'm going to be pulling on both sides. So I have to pull up to the point that I have the width of the under bust round measurement divided by 2, okay, plus the seam allowance. So that's basically how you're going to be getting your gathered at this point, okay. So you pull up to the point that you have your under bust round measurement divided by 2 plus your seam allowance. So after I put the gather to a certain point, I had to measure. So after measuring, I still have excess 3 inches to gather, even with the seam allowances, okay. So I had to put more to make sure that I have the actual width that I want. So I had to mark out the extra places that I'm going to be gathering. So I have like 1.5 inches extra to gather on both sides. So I proceeded to doing the gather straight on the machine so that it makes it faster for me. So after I gathered to the actual under bust round measurement divided by 2, this is what I have, and at this point the width is perfect for use. So after that, this is what it looks like after I've turned it with the interfacing at the neck area and then also at the under bust area. You can see how neat it came out. So the next thing I'm going to be doing, I get the middle part of the dress and I'm going to be stitching it to the upper area of the dress. So I have to flip like so, and this is how the stitching goes at this point, okay. So I'll be showing you shortly what it looks like after I was done with the stitching. And back to the back part of the dress, this is what it looks like after I had stitched the neck area, closed up the side, and this is what the zipper closing is going to look like. And for the front, upper and middle part, this is what we have. Can you see that? So I have to notch on this part because it is not a straight stitch, so that it relaxes by the time I am done. So I have to notch all along because of the curvy shape at this point. And after notching, I flip to the right side so that I can have it ironed so that it relaxes very well. So this is what we have at this point. And at this point, I can proceed with the stitching of the shoulder area, that's the back to the front, closing up the shoulder area, and then I'm going to be closing up the sides as well before I attach the gathers at the lower part using this particular fabric for the lower part, okay. So like I said, I'm going to be gathering all along to match the circumference of this upper part. So after closing up the sides and the shoulder area of the upper part of the dress, this is what we have. And now it's time for us to attach the gather to the lower part of the dress. So for the gathering at the lower part, I already ran a gathered stitch all along the scallopy shape of this part, as you can see. So I'm going to match the width of the scallopy at the upper part of the dress. I hope you understand that, okay. So this is going to take some time because you need to be patient. You don't need to rush this so that your thread does not cut. And for the gathered stitch on the scallopy, I stitched each scallopy separately. I didn't run a gathered stitch like once from the beginning of this gather to the end, okay. So I stitched them separately so that the thread does not cut. So after I was done with the gathering of each of the scallopy separately, I had to get the upper part of the dress. So this is the zipper allowance area. I had that pinned down. So at each scallopy, I had to use my pin to hold it down, hold the two pieces of fabric together. Can you see that? So I just pin down and then I pull further the gather so that it matches with the upper part of the dress. So this is basically what I'm going to be doing at every scallopy point of this dress, okay. So the upper part has to match with the width of the lower part, okay. So if I pin and I see that the gathered is still wider than the upper part, I will pull the gather to make sure it matches with the upper part of the dress. So this I did from the other zipper allowance of the back to the other end of the zipper allowance of the dress, okay. So after I was done with that, I'm going to be going to the stitching machine to have it stitched round from one end to the other. So let's move straight to the stitching machine. So on the stitching machine, you have to be careful and not too fast, especially if you're a beginner. So I had to stitch gently all around what I already had pinned down. And at this point, socialites, if you haven't subscribed, please do well by clicking on that red subscribe button to become a family member. So I had stitched from the beginning to the end, and this is what it looks like. And you see our scallopy shape staring right at us. At the end of the day, this is what we have. Can you see we are almost done? Remaining the sleeve area and then the beading to be done, and then the zipper allowance to be closed up, guys. This is what we have, guys, okay. You can see how beautiful our dress gathered scalloped dress under bust corset came out looking so elegant, so beautiful. So at this point, like I said, I'm just going to fixing the sleeve and then closing up the zipper area and hemming the down part, and our dress is ready. And guys, this is what it came out looking. I already said that in the pattern drafting tutorial. I love the comfort of this dress. It's so comfortable and so elegant, guys. So with the beading still ongoing, guys, it still came out looking beautiful. I was done with the under bust beading. The scallopy area beading is still ongoing, guys, but nevertheless this came out looking so beautiful, and the sleeve is also yet to be attached to the dress. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you and see you in my very next one. Bye.